This happened when I was 4. Mom was struggling with caring for me, and I was briefly removed from her care, placed with foster parents. The foster parents were nice enough, but they drank and fought a lot. We kids tried to stay outside, to keep out of their way. They didn't pay us much mind. One day, while I was playing outside, a car pulled up, 2 men inside. For some reason, I don't remember their faces, but they told me they had kittens in the back seat. Suggested I get in to take a closer look. I was so excited. Cute, fluffy kittens. Heck yes, I wanted to hold them. Quick as a flash, I took off running. I yelled back, "Let me go ask permission." Thank God. I followed the rules that day. The foster mother looked out the window to see what was happening, and of course the men were gone. You'd think they'd watch me closer after that, but sadly nothing changed. Few days later, I was 2 houses down. Climbing a tree with the neighborhood kids, I was the youngest. Slipped, started to fall, when a stranger caught me, lifted me back up. "Whoa, you're okay," he said. He was probably in his mid-20s with reddish-brown hair and a large mole or birthmark on his cheek. His face is burned into my mind for life. He told me his name was Peter and asked for mine. He struck up a conversation with all the children. He asked if we knew Godzilla. The other kids cheered, I just nodded along. Then he pointed to the woods. "Did you know Godzilla lives there?" "Oh no, we didn't." We all gasped, shocked, except for 2 boys who played it cool. They insisted they already knew Godzilla lived out there and that they'd seen him. Of course, the rest of us were fascinated and wanted to see too. So we all decided to go look for Godzilla. Did I ask for permission? No. Why? Peter said my foster parents knew him and that it was okay with them. At 4 years old, that was good enough for me. I didn't understand deceit or lying yet. Not from an adult, so I didn't know to be suspicious. In wide-eyed excitement, about 10 of us set off to hunt for Godzilla. Yes, 10. This man walked off with an entire street's worth of kids, and no one said a word. We hiked down the street, Peter holding my hand. Looking back, I realize now I was his target. The others were just a bonus, I guess, because he kept me very close. I was the only girl in the group, though I didn't realize that until later. I played with these boys, but gender wasn't something I noticed at the time. When I got tired, Peter lifted me onto his back. We reached the woods and went in. After about 5 minutes, Peter stopped and put me down. Then, he pulled out a pornographic magazine and showed it to us. I didn't understand what I was looking at. I still didn't see the differences between my playmates and me. I thought we were the same. The boys were excited, clamoring to see, but the 2 older ones looked embarrassed and ashamed, glancing away from me. I didn't understand. They said they wanted to go home. Peter told them to leave, but they hesitated, afraid to go alone. So they stayed. We kept hiking until we reached a swimming hole or maybe a river. The boys stripped off their clothes and jumped in. I'd learned to swim at 3, so I took off my clothes too and jumped in. That's when I noticed our bodies were different. The boys looked shocked when I undressed. I could see it on their faces. For the first time, I felt the urge to cover myself, but I didn't know why. I'd never felt that before. Peter scolded me for it. "Why are you covering up?" he asked. I didn't have an answer, so I shrugged and jumped in. Peter brought out a raft and I held on. Then I heard yelling. I looked up and saw furious adults screaming at the boys. Peter hid my head behind the raft. The boys scrambled out naked as their parents shouted. I'm sure they'd been terrified, but no one noticed. I was missing. My foster parents hadn't realized I was gone. The boys left. I was forgotten, alone with the predator. I won't detail the sexual assault. It's clear where this is going. Just know my innocence was shattered forever. He took me to an abandoned shack and did what he did. I don't know how long it lasted. I lost consciousness a few times. I escaped in my mind. When he finished, he strangled me. The boys must have told their parents Peter still had me. It took time, but a group found us. Someone stopped Peter just in time. I was giving up. Darkness was closing in. I remember their faces. I felt so dirty, so ashamed. One of them coaxed me up. I was taken for medical care, dehydrated, needing stitches. Things are blurry here. I don't remember it all. I was sent back to the foster parents. Their teenage daughter took me to her room, pulled out a cassette recorder, and begged me to tell her what happened. I refused at first, but she promised not to tell anyone. So I did, as best I could with the wrong words, confusion, and shame. I thought it was my fault. After recounting the attack, I went back to playing. Then I looked up. My mother and the police were there. Mom was crying. The officer looked down at me, his expression so sad. But to my child's eyes, he was disgusted by me. I burst into tears. Seeing my mom weep in the other room, I thought, she'll never love me again. I'm a dirty, bad little girl. Even now I cry thinking of her, that little girl. What a fucking monster. The officer, his own eyes wet, said, "We'll find him, don't worry." And they did. Mom later told me my recording was used as evidence, though I don't know if that's true. She's tight-lipped. I've tried finding records, but they say my age at the time restricts access. I hope he's still in prison because I still am. A little girl died on that shitty floor. She was happy, trusting, innocent, outgoing, and curious. The girl who came back, she withdrew, never trusted again, and spent her life feeling undeserving of love. To me, this was terror. To you, the listener, it should be a warning. It's terrifyingly easy for a predator to take your child. Trust no one. Never look away. Keep them safe. This happened about 9 years ago, back when I was 19 and still living in the town I grew up in. It wasn't the worst place in the world, but it had its share of problems. There were good neighborhoods, sure, but some rougher parts too. At the time, the local Walmart hadn't quite slipped into the sketchy category yet, but it was getting close. You could feel it even if you couldn't explain it. It was a typical summer night, humid, quiet, probably around 11 p.m. Walmart was still open 24 hours back then. My buddy, we'll call him Jay, and I were sitting in my car in the middle of the lot surrounded by other parked cars, just hanging out and listening to The Human Condition by John Bellion, talking about life, women, dreams, the kind of stuff 19-year-old guys talk about when they're convinced they've got the world halfway figured out. That's when I noticed her. A woman, mid-40s maybe, was walking slowly toward the car. Nothing alarming at first. I assumed she was heading to her own vehicle, but she wasn't. She stopped right at my passenger window, leaned down, and tapped. "Please help me," she said, her voice shaky. "I need your help." I cracked the window just enough to hear her over the music. Jay leaned in. "What?" he asked. "My car. It broke down," she said. "It's over there. I need help." We looked in the direction she pointed, around the dark side of the building near the edge of the lot. Barely lit, shadows swallowing everything. I could see the vehicle she was referring to. A van. You know the type. Windowless, white, rusted. The kind every stranger danger public service announcement warned us about. Still, we were 19. Slightly into cars. Definitely into the idea of being helpful. "Where exactly is your car?" I asked again, more cautiously. She gestured again. "Just over there, please." I hesitated. "Okay, start walking over. We'll follow you in the car." I went to lock the doors just in case, but she moved faster. In one fluid motion, she yanked the back door handle and pulled it open. "No," she said, climbing into the back seat. "Drive over." Jay and I froze. "Can you get out of the car?" I asked. "Yeah," Jay added more firmly, "get out of the car." But she didn't move. "No, I need you to drive me. There are guys over there. They're creeping me out. Just drive me to the van, please. I need you to drive me there. Now. Please." Her voice was urgent, but something about it was off. Too desperate. Too rehearsed. I slowly slid my hand down beside the seat where I kept a small breaker bar. My heart was pounding. "I'm going to ask you one more time," I said, my voice low. "Get out of the car." And then she snapped. "I'm not getting out of this fucking car. You said you'd help me. I need you to drive me to the car, please. You promised drive over there." I looked at Jay. His face was pale. I knew she wasn't leaving without a scene or worse, so I did the only thing I could think of. I put the car in reverse and drove straight to the front entrance of Walmart. People were still going in and out. Bright lights, cameras, safety. She leaned forward. "This isn't where I told you to go. Drive to my van. Drive to the van." That slip, our van, that's when I was done. I threw the car in park, grabbed the breaker bar, jumped out and screamed, "Get the fuck out of my car now." She flinched, looked around. Dozens of eyes were suddenly on us. Without another word, she bolted, ran toward the van. The side door slid open before she even got there. She jumped in. The van peeled out of the lot like a bat out of hell. To this day, I don't know what her endgame was, but I know it wasn't good. I was lucky. We were lucky, and now, I conceal carry. That's a story for another time, but let's just say I never want to be that unprepared again. I was either in 7th or 8th grade at the time, and one evening I got seriously creeped out. No, it was beyond creepy. I was genuinely scared, and that scared me even more. Country or mountain kids learn to cope with all sorts of problems that city kids might never face. But when it comes to weird human behavior, we're often at a loss. My parents were big into playing cards. They were part of a circle of friends who'd take turns hosting potluck dinners, followed by card games into the night. I usually went with them, but that evening I was getting over a flu bug, so I stayed home. I was camped out on the living room couch reading a book. I had asked my mom to close the curtain across from me since the sunlight was hitting my eyes. I was still weak and didn't feel like getting up. She closed the curtain, and that turned out to be a big help later. It was still daylight when my parents left, the late afternoon sun pouring in through the back windows. My cat Whiskers was sprawled across the back of a chair, dozing in a sunbeam. My old dog Julie was curled up in a warm patch on the rug. I was reading and all was peaceful. At some point I must have dozed off. I woke up suddenly to Whiskers hissing and Julie growling. I had never heard her growl like that before, that deep, low rumble that continues even as she breathes in. She had moved from her spot and was now stiffly standing beside me, facing the front door. That's when I noticed the doorknob slowly jiggling. Thankfully, the deadbolt was locked. I was still groggy and confused when I heard footsteps moving across the porch toward the kitchen window. Whoever it was must have had sand or grit on their shoes. I could hear the crunching noise with each step. Suddenly, I was wide awake. It was now completely dark. All the curtains were still open except the one my mom had closed for me. The only light on was the one next to me where I'd been reading, putting me in a literal spotlight. I was wearing just a nightgown and had untied my robe earlier when I got too warm, so it had fallen open. I was exposed, vulnerable, and now in real danger. Before the person reached the kitchen window, I rolled off the couch and flattened myself against it. We had a big cedar chest as a coffee table. I pulled my legs up behind it to keep out of view. Julie was now going ballistic, barking like crazy. Whiskers had darted under something to hide. I realized I had to move. I'd be in full view from the next window. Dizzy and panicked, I crawled along the wall toward the phone. Julie was now lunging at one of the windows, baring her teeth, but the person outside wasn't leaving. I had a horrible feeling. They knew I was home alone. And the most terrifying part? A barking dog wasn't scaring them off. The campground near our home was closed for the winter, and all the cabins around us were empty. It was a Wednesday night. Our house was the only one occupied in the area. I made it to the phone by staying under the window line. At one point, I was directly beneath the same window someone had just been peering into. From the glimpse I caught, his height and the broad shoulders of his jacket, I knew it was a man. I picked up the phone and it was dead. At that exact moment, I heard the back door being tried. I froze. That door had a glass window. I was dizzy and starting to panic. Then I remembered. My stepdad had installed a separate phone line in his office at the other end of the house. I bolted down the hallway with Julie at my heels, slammed the office door shut, and locked it. Thank God, that phone worked. I called my stepdad at the house where they were playing cards. It was only about a mile away. The sheriff's office was across the lake, way too far. I needed someone now. Between the barking and my panicked rambling, it took him a minute to understand what was happening. Finally, I screamed, "Help, come now, someone is breaking in." They cut the other phone line. If they get in, I'm running out the other door and hiding outside. I was so dizzy that everything around me was spinning. I crawled under my stepdad's desk, trying to stay hidden from the window. Julie stood guard over me, no longer barking, but with her hackles raised and teeth bared. That silent aggression scared me more than the barking. It was like she knew she needed to stay quiet so the guy wouldn't know where I was. It felt like forever, but only a few minutes passed before I heard a siren. Some of the people at the card party were off-duty deputies. My stepdad and one of them came into the house while others searched outside. I was cold, partly from shock, partly because the office wasn't heated. Turns out the window on the back door had been broken. There was blood on the glass. He had cut himself. The doorknob lock was turned, but the deadbolt, which needed a key, held. That was the only thing that stopped him from getting in. They caught him the next day. He had gone to a local doctor for stitches. After that night, we made sure to close all the curtains at sunset. And yes, I stayed home alone again. I wasn't going to let some jackass ruin my life by making me afraid.